Dolan?
Just to echo, it is the mayor's cabinet, and I think it does, we need to respect the fact that it needs to be filled with people that he trusts and works with well. I do have a question. I guess this is of the mayor. Was anyone currently working in the Community and Economic Development Department interviewed, or was anyone interested in pursuing the job from that department?
I did not. I felt very confident in Mr. Kelly's abilities, and I've grown to trust him over the last 7 years. And I think we've all seen an enormous amount of growth in Joe. He's very familiar with the projects within community economic development, and I feel like he's hardworking, capable, and I have great confidence in his ability to do the job. And based on that, I selected him without interviewing any other internal candidates.
Okay, I'm going to second a number of things that you just said. But I'm just interested because I think when we talked about hiring the assistant or the deputy, I can't remember what her title is, but that one of the discussions was that perhaps she would be moving up into a leadership role, and then that would mean that you had more diversity on your cabinet. It was one of the things that we talked about. So I understand. And I'm going to speak to the faith that I would have in Joe in this job too. But it's still, I'm interested in knowing if you just thought that wasn't worth, what's no longer worth considering the idea of promoting the woman that you hired to be Tony's second.
Well, I did hire her. So
oh, I know. You were very.
She does a great job as deputy director, and I think she's going to do a great job of continuing in that role. And I felt Joe was a better fit.
Okay, all right. Well, before I make my other comment, I want to say that I think the most important thing Joe Kelly has going for him is he is really smart. He is a very, very intelligent man. And I can't think of too many interesting jobs that he probably couldn't do. I think he probably will do a terrific job. I do wish you well with the management part. It's troubled previous directors of that department, but I also think you have high interpersonal intelligence in addition to all your other brains. That said, please do not take it personally that at the next meeting I do intend to introduce a resolution that would, perhaps by 10% we had discussed, lower that starting salary. I don't doubt at all that you'll work your way up. But I think with the disparity in experience, it makes some sense to give you something to work toward. And that will come up at the next council meeting, I believe. But I will support you fully as my vote.
Mr. Reynolds?
Just one more comment to kind of answer Ms. Dolan's question about the deputy director as well. I know that in conversations that I've had with Mr. Kelly about this role, there are certainly some things that I think that she is going to kind of take the lead on. And even though she'll still be in that position, I think that that's consistent with conversations that we've had, is that there are certainly things that certainly strengths that she has, and certainly things she's been kind of working on, because as you know, Mr. Hanna, situation over the last couple of years. So I think that it's, because that was a question that I had as well. And I think that it's, I'm confident that going forward, we certainly are going to utilize your talents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'm not sure where the salary thing will go going down the pike, and I'm assuming that if approved tonight, he will start at some number. And I think just to clarify, if the number would be at what the previous economic development director was making as of 2010, right? Based on what the budget approved on the 1.5% mid-year.
Mr. Mayor?
Correct, and I think the way to look at this is he will make what the other department heads within the city of Bethlehem, rather than look at the past head of this particular department, you can look at the Director of Public Works, Director of Water and Sewer, Director of Parks and Public Property, and Director of Community Economic Development. We've worked hard to get the department head salaries level. Police and fire are different because they have longevity and other benefits associated with them. But if this particular department head will make the same salary as the other department heads. He has 7 years experience within City Hall. He's an attorney. Fact of the matter is, prior to coming to the city in his full-time capacity as assistant solicitor, he took a $30,000 pay cut to come here. So I think he has earned it and deserves to be paid not just what the previous person had, but what the other department heads make as well. So it is my intention to start him at that salary.
Yeah,
Go right ahead.
yeah, and I get that, and that's what I was clarifying. I was not jumping the gun on what Mrs. Dolan was discussing. I was just saying, if approved tonight, he will be starting at
Correct.
the 2010 salary, not to include the 1.5% that the council did not approve until July 1st, correct?
He will start at the same salaries as the other department.
Okay, that's...
Which is that 2010.
Right, okay.
And we'll
And
change
then
in the middle of the year.
I think it would be important, and I think you started to do this, that based on the prior history of department heads, this is my first time going through this, so it's a learning process for me, so it might be important to clarify, Mr. Mayor, that you don't really have any methods, I assume there's no other methods you have of raising your direct report salaries other than normal cost of living, is that true?
Well, I could do that from the year. I could make recommendations through the budget process on an annual basis for individual council or for individual department heads. But as I've said, we've actually worked to bring them all in line with one another.
Okay.
And that's something that's relatively recent over the last 2 years. I don't know exactly when we were able to make that happen. Again, with the exception of police and fire.
Okay.
And so you're correct in saying that there are not steps associated with these positions, there is not longevity associated with these positions, as there are with other employees within the city.
Is there any range, is there a box of any sort that you have to work with, or is it infinity if you wanted to on a budget? Assuming, the
bounds.
you stay within reason, I understand, but I'm just saying there's no salary range, there's no grade level range, it is what it is, right? You just try to keep everybody in the same vicinity.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Before I call the roll, I will support the nominee. I spoke to Mr. Kelly about this a few weeks ago, and along with other issues. And I think I believe very strongly that any mayor, not just this mayor, but that the mayor should have the opportunity to appoint his own department heads. And I think Mr. Kelly's been involved in some of our biggest projects economically, the TIP, the Beth Works, Majestic, possibly the typical foreign towers, so it's kind of tied in the areas of economic development. So I will support the nominee. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiuseppe?
Aye.
Ms. Dolan?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Nunchuk?
Aye.
The vote is 7-0.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Administrative Order Number 1338, I hereby appoint Chris C. Cooper, Esquire, 38 Orange Avenue, Amber, Pennsylvania, 19002, as Assistant Solicitor, and this appointment is effective January 4th, 2011.
The resolution is sponsored by Mr. Evans and Mr. DiGiuseppe.
Comments? Mr. Reynolds?
I would just like to say that I certainly trust Mr. Spurk's judgment on who he would like in this position. I'm sure he discussed this with the mayor about who he wanted to kind of step up into Mr. Kelly's shoes here. And I think, in my experiences, granted they are limited with Mr. Cooper over the last couple of years, that he certainly is willing and able and qualified to do the job. And kind of to piggyback on what I said about Mr. Kelly, there are certainly properties available in the city of Bethlehem if you would like to move from Ambler into the city of Bethlehem. We would appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Assuming Mr. Cooper gets approved, will there be a backfill into his role? Is that the next step? And how will you approach that?
Yes, there will be.
Okay, and that was a paralegal type?
Paralegal. He was not function. I mean, the good news is we were getting sort of an attorney at paralegal rate. So he was functioning as an attorney within the city, but was being paid as a paralegal. So I don't know that we're going to have the benefit of that same situation next time. But that's so.
Okay, thank you.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiuseppe?
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Dolan?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Donches?
Aye.
Vote is 7-0.
Thank you. No further reports, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll move to resolutions. 11A, authorizing use permit agreement, St. Luke's Hospital, boutique at the rink.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that the Mayor and Controller are hereby authorized to execute a use permit agreement for St. Luke's Hospital and Health Networks 2011 boutique at the rink at the Municipal Ice Rink. The resolution is sponsored by Ms. Dolan and Mr. DeGiussino.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Aye.
Mr. DeGiussino?
Aye.
Ms. Dolan?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer? Mr. Donches?
Aye.
How about Mr. Reynolds?
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Vote is 6-0.
Thank you. 11B, certificate of appropriateness for 23-25 West 4th Street.
Whereas it is proposed to remove existing metal panels on the storefront and replace with tempered safety glass at 2325 West 4th Street, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that a certificate of appropriateness is hereby granted for the work. The resolution is sponsored by Ms. Dolan and Mr. DeGiussino.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Aye.
Mr. DeGiussino?
Aye.
Ms. Dolan?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Donches?
Aye.
Vote is 6-0.
11C, approving the economic development liquor license for 1223 West Broad Street.
Whereas the Pennsylvania Liquor Control provides for the issuance of restaurant and eating place retail dispenser licenses for the purpose of economic development in a municipality under circumstances that include approval of the applicant's request by the municipal governing body. And whereas the City of Bethlehem has received a request for approval of an economic development liquor license from 1231 Company Incorporated for premises at 1223 West Broad Street, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. And whereas a public hearing was held January 4th, 2011 for the purpose of receiving comments and recommendations of interested individuals. And whereas Bethlehem City Council does not find that the requested economic development license would adversely affect the welfare, health, peace, and morals of the City of Bethlehem or its residents. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of Bethlehem that the requested economic development liquor license be approved relative to the above applicant. The resolution is sponsored by Ms. Dolan and Mr. DeGiussino.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Aye.
Mr. DeGiussino?
Aye.
Ms. Dolan?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Donches?
Aye.
Vote is 6-0.
We will move to new business.